YouTube? It's Rico here, and I made an update deck profile for Metalfoes. This is just stuff I've been messing around with in the weeks since I got 26 at the Timonium Regional. It's also, I've made changes to address the release of ABC, which happened today. Um, in all honesty, this is just minor stuff. It's all probably going to be irrelevant in 2 weeks when Invasion of Vengeance drops, because that actually changes a lot about the deck and just makes it so much stronger. And so this is kind of just an interim thing. It's just a way to address ABC in the next 2 weeks before we get Invasion of Vengeance. And it's really, like, the main deck didn't even change that much. I tried a bunch of different things. I tried cutting Jalgan because I feel like he's a lot weaker with ABC in the meta, because like he's good against Blue Eyes and VA, but he's not that great in the mirror, and he's not that great against ABC. But I feel like until we get the new support, the deck kind of lacks power without the lockdown plays. So I ended up putting Jalgan back in, and then I also moved some stuff around the extra deck to better accommodate locking my opponent down with Jalgan, and I just cut cards that I considered like the weakest cards in the extra deck. Another thing I tried was upping the Magispector count, where I put in 2 Foxes and 1 each of Tempest and Tornado, and it was alright. I liked the idea of it because it gave more utility to Raccoon, and it gave you 2 more powerful traps. The only reason I cut it is because Tempest and Tornado are both bricks, and they're especially awful if you don't open any Magispector with them. So, like, it was just adding 2 more bricks into the deck, and really just the brick factor is the reason you don't max out on counter unless you aren't playing combination. Like, you don't play more than 4 Metalfoes spell and traps. So like just putting in the magic just kind of seems like backwards logic in that regard. And then I also messed around with running 45 to 48 cards, because you run so many cards you don't want to draw, and the deck is so consistent that it can get away with it. But I think that only really works if you have Pot of Desires, and I do not, so I decided to stick with 42. Well, 40 to 42. I was also playing around with just reducing cards I didn't like and just putting an Upstart Goblin, but I found like it didn't really make a difference, and since I was cutting power cards, it was actually lowering the ceiling of the deck. So, yeah. So, in the end, I ended up just swapping 3 cards, which were the 3 Pot of Desires I borrowed from a friend, for 3 other cards, which will be in there. But the extra changed a little bit. Like, I think I switched 3 cards around in the extra, and then the side deck changed a fair amount. I think like 4... half of the side deck's actually different, so yeah, I'll just get into it. Okay, I had this set up right before. Alright. So the main deck should be quick because it's pretty similar to my last video. If you need like hardcore explanations, just go see that one. And also, like, most of this is pretty straightforward. I play 3 Volflame, 3 Gold Driver, 3 Silvered, 3 Stealing, it's obvious. 1 Monolith, 1 Scout. So, YCS Minneapolis, the finals was a Metalfoes mirror. And neither of them played the Cliffhorn engine, which I found kind of shocking. I guess it kind of makes sense because it sucks against Blue Eyes, and that was probably going to be among the most represented decks. But I think Cyber Dragon Infinity is really good in just about every other matchup, because like he adds to the being able to control the game and lock down your opponent, which is important until we get the new stuff. And then he also allows you to max out on Summoner's Art, which really helps with the deck's consistency, because Summoner's Art isn't like, I've been hearing people say that like the Summoner's Art brick, when it's like not really, because they can be Scout, but they can also be Volflame. And I like the one person who mentioned it, the winner, he said that he didn't like Summoner's Art because it didn't let you search a low scale if you needed it. But I find a lot of the times you can still easily search out a low scale with either Painful Decision or using Eccentric and popping the combination that you search. And granted, he wasn't playing combinations, so that was probably a factor of it. But yeah, I think this is really strong. If you really wanted a level 5 or higher low scale, just put in like either Focalt's Cannon or Mandragon. which I was actually playing Mandragon for a little bit, but I found that the instances where I need to search the low scale off summoners are so incredibly rare that it just never came up. So, but yeah, I think these are really good because they give you access to infinity and they give you access to 3 more searchers. And then for effect pendulums of eccentric, I play 3 because I play combination. 3 Bamboku, 1 Kirin, 1 Luster. And then 3 Gofu, 2 Jowgen. Love and hate this card at the same time. It's a lot better when I'm running more ways to like lock them down and protect them. And then I stuck with the rabbit. In the last video, I was saying how in testing and on paper, rabbit was really good, but in the actual regional, he sucked, and that was true. But I'm growing fond of him again, just because like playing with him more, like he's still comes up a lot, and you can make a lot of plays with him, and like he gets a lot better because it makes it easier for you to set up a board that locks down Jowgen, or just makes a stronger turn 1 board, and then if you go second and you draw him, you can just make Grand Pulse and wipe things away. So, I don't know. He does definitely get better in the next set, but right now I think he's probably still worth using because like he can out things, or he can set up a strong board if you're going first. He's not necessary, and maybe like my experience of the regional is just bad luck with him, because like whenever I test with him, he's really good. He's only really bad if you draw him late game, but that can honestly be said about a lot of the cards in the deck. Like Summoner's Art's bad, Painful Decision's bad if you draw them late, Gofu's bad if you draw them late, so like Rabbit's really no different. It gives you another strong opening option. And I think I probably would have gotten better results with him if I didn't constantly set him out. But, that's all the monsters. Like I said, I haven't changed. And for spells, I play 1 Fusion. And then in place of Desires, I put in 3 MST. I moved these to the main. There were several reasons for that. The first one was I needed room in the side deck. But the other reasons were... the second reason is that if you're going first, like MST is not terrible if you go first, because it fulfills a very similar role to Archie and Eccentric, where if you need to search a specific scale, or you just want to extend your plays, you can set combination and then MST it, and then search out whatever scale you need. And that comes up a lot, and honestly at the regional, the Eccentric play was one of my favorite things to do, because it unbricked like every single hand that would have been bad if I was running 3 counters instead of 2 counter 1 combination. And MST kind of fulfills a similar role, and I used MST to the same effect whenever I went second games 2 or 3, because I almost always setted Eccentric out and put this in. It's not as good because Eccentric is also a level 3 body, which lets you make extra deck plays, but it's decent and it's more versatile, especially because we're probably entering a format where anti-spell fragrance is mained. And then this also just outstrike, and even if you don't use it for the combination play, you can still set it, which is really good against both the mirror and ABC, because in the mirror you just hit a scale, or you could just hit a counter that they set, and then against ABC you hit Union Hanger, and that shuts down like a good amount of their power plays for the turn. So yeah, MST is really good. It's one of the most versatile cards going forward, and I would definitely main it. So, and then 3 Decision, 3 Summoner's Art. I swear by 3 Decision. Like, the only 2 arguments I really hear for why multiple decisions is bad is that it gets dead late game, which is fine. Like, I can't argue that is true, and you don't want to see multiples of it. But like, there are a lot of cards in this deck you don't want to see multiples of. Like, multiple Summoner's Art is fine, but you don't want to see multiple Decision, you don't want to see multiple MST, you don't want to see multiple Jowgen. Well, Jowgen's a 2-0, so it doesn't count. You don't want to see multiple Gofu, you don't want to see multiple Eccentrics, and like, so, like, there are a lot of cards in the deck you don't want to see multiples of, but people still max them out anyway because they're that good to open with. And I see Decision the same way. And like, even if you're running 3 of a card, the chances that you're going to open 2 of them in an opening hand, if I'm not mistaken, is about 3%, which is like, that's a lower chance than opening like Brilliant Fusion and Gem Knight Lazuli. And people still ran that. So like, it's really good, and like, the argument that it gets dead late game is true, but I think it's more true when you're playing Pot of Desires, because then you're more likely to banish copies of your Metalfoes, well, actually, you're like more or less guaranteed to banish copies of your Metalfoes because you're running 12 of them. But that's kind of where I feel like Decision gets dead. So the only thing that really makes Decision dead as the game progresses is like Rescue Rabbit, and if you're summoning them off a counter, where most of the time I'm usually summoning Volflame off of a counter, which you can't search with Painful Decision anyway. So, yeah, I feel like more often than not I can activate 2 per game, and if I can't, I probably got generated a lot of advantage early on anyway. And like, you don't ever have to really resolve 3. I don't think any deck is ever intended to resolve 3 of these. So, and then like even decks where like that ran 2 generally only wanted to resolve it once. So I swear by 3 Painful Decision. It's a consistency card. And the Summoner's Art is obvious. And for traps, it's 2 counter, 1 combination, 1 emptiness. That hasn't changed. And that's the main deck. Extra deck. 2 Ori Calc, 1 Adamantia. That also hasn't changed. 1 Big Eye. I was at 16 cards in the extra deck, and it was between cutting this and cutting Castel. And it came down to which one came up less often. And at the regional, Big Eye came up twice, and Castel came up once. And the instance where Castel came up once, I could have also done Utopia the Lightning, and it probably wouldn't have made a difference. So, yeah, whenever I make a rank 4, I almost always go into Utopia the Lightning. So, I felt like that was a lot more important than having having Big Eye was more important than having Castel. And, one thing I want to clarify in the last video, when I explained the combo where Big Eye won me the mirror match, obviously my memory was really hazy because in the way I explained it, I normal summoned twice. And I assure you I did not cheat, because if I did, I'm really good at sneaking it, because there were like 4 or 5 judges watching, because it was turn 4 of time, I think. And so I said that I normaled Bunbuku, and then like I pendulumed, and then I normaled Kirin. That's not what happened. What's likely what happened is that I had the Bunbuku in the extra deck, and I had an extra scale to pop. I honestly can't remember. That's probably more likely, but I assure you I did not cheat. So... And if I did, I got away with it, which is kind of sketchy, but I can't change it now. And then Nova Infinity, Utopia Lightning, and Engineer. I cut Totem Bird for this, because the chances of opening Totem Bird are really low, because it requires you open multiple Magic Specters. Because if you only open Raccoon, you're gonna search Unicorn. So it's only good if you open double Raccoon or Raccoon Unicorn, and the chances of opening that are very low. It's like 6 to 7%, and I don't feel like investing an entire extra deck slot to that when it could go to stuff that's more likely to occur. And like Totem Bird, I feel, is at its strongest turn 1, and even then it's not super great. It's just something you add to a board that's already good. And like, I feel like if I were to make it at any other point in the game, I would make Grand Pulse instead, and that's quite honestly how I feel about every rank 3 I would run, is that I would make it going first, and then any other point I would probably rather make Grand Pulse. So, yeah. And Engineer is good because it protects Jowgen, and it protects like Infinity and any other big monster you want to protect, which is mainly the stuff I added, like the Synchros I added, because there's no point in protecting a Pendulum. So, yeah. So yeah, I put an Engineer for that reason, is that this makes Jowgen better, because if you can open, like, you run so many level 3s that you can just open Jowgen in this, and it's not the best lockdown, but it's a decent one. And then Grand Pulse. And then for Synchros, I'm still playing Zulkin and Crystal Wing and Ignister, and then I put in Stardust Spark and Void Ogre. So I cut Omega because, while he's not bad, and I actually think he's pretty good, I feel like he's not good enough. And it's like, it's not that Omega's bad, it's just that I feel like Void Ogre and Stardust Spark are better, at least for right now. I think Omega becomes stronger when Invasion Vengeance comes out, because with the way the deck is going to change, you're going to be more likely to have cards in your hand, which means there's no point in running Void Ogre, because right now the only thing that conflicts with Void Ogre is like Kieran and multiple Gofus. And if you open multiple Gofus, then it just kind of sucks. And Kieran, you can still kind of work with it, like it's not as strong, you just have to be a bit smarter about it. So for that reason, I feel like Void Ogre is stronger, because if you drop this with like an Infinity or an Engineer, that's a pain in the ass. If you drop like Cypher and Omega with an Infinity of that, it's like annoying, but it's not as big of a deal. Like, yeah, you rip a card out of their hand, but that's about it. And like, recycling the counters is nice with Omega, but I don't feel like it comes up a lot. And oftentimes, if I can lock them down, I'm probably closing the game up pretty quickly, hopefully anyway. And then Spark's good for protecting Jowgen, and he's good for protecting Vanities, but since I'm going to cut Jowgen probably and move him to the side after the next set, I'll probably end up cutting Stardust Spark for that reason. Oh yeah, and I'm probably going to cut Engineer after that too. Like these, like him and Engineer are mainly there to accommodate Jowgen, and like when I cut Jowgen, they're not going to be important. But yeah, these three obviously these like always stay in. And, like, I've seen builds that play Black Rose Dragon, and like Black Rose Dragon is good, but the only way you can really make it is with Gofu and Steelin, and I generally don't want to summon Steelin. I kind of want to use them as scale. So I don't know. There's just not like the builds that the guy who was running Black Rose was the guy who won. The guy who got second he was only playing these in Omega because he wasn't focusing Gofu. But the guy who won was playing Black Rose, but he also wasn't playing Infinity Nova. That gave him room to put in like Black Rose and Omega, which he said would have been Scarlight instead. But like it's not worth putting in that space for a card that only comes up in literally one play. Whereas like these are easy to go into because you run so many level 3s. Yeah. And for the side deck, which is what's changed the most, so play 2 Chaos Hunter. This is an idea I heard. I haven't actually tested this, where you side this in against ABC, and if you're going first, you just Pendulum Summon it, and they can't summon ABC because they can't banish. Yeah. Oh, it's also one-sided, so like your opponent can't banish cards, but you still can, which only really comes up with a counter. But and so they can't make ABC, which turns them into a bad rank 4 deck. Or if you're going second against them, you can summon it in response to them special summoning anything, and then they can't do ABC. So it's good going first or second against them. It kind of sucks more going second because you have to discard a card out of your hand, but if you're locking them out of ABC, that's really good. So this is some idea I saw floating around on Pojo forums, and a friend of mine who also runs Pojo mentioned it, so I thought it was a good idea, so I figured I'd try it out. 2 Humongous. So I switched out Gamma Seal for this because, contrary to the belief that everybody would assume, where oh, you don't want to give your opponent a level 8 because if they're playing Blue Eyes they can just make a rank 8 with it, I think that reason is a bunch of shit, because if you're dropping Gamma Seal on your opponent and you can't get rid of it, your hand probably blows. Yeah, the reason Humongous over Gamma Seal is because you can Pendulum Summon it because it's level 7. That was brought to my attention by a user on Pojo after my regional, and he had topped his regional. It was like a 900 man when he topped with a 48 card build, so it's not like it was a random scrub telling me. But yeah, he brought that up. I was like, wow, that's really a good point, and I can't believe I didn't think of that. And like the 2400 attack is only relevant if you're running into it with a Volflame, and I would hardly consider that a bad trade because you can get the Volflame back anyway. I decided to cut down to 2 instead of 3 just because the card I would have cut to put the third Humongous in would have been Raigeki, and I don't entirely feel comfortable not playing Raigeki because it works against Rogue, and honestly in the mirror if I had to choose between Humongous and Raigeki, I'd probably choose playing Raigeki. Like, it triggers counter, but it also like wipes Crystal Wing, and like if I can bait Infinity, it wipes that. Like the only thing it doesn't hit is Kieran, which is in my opinion one of the easier cards to play around in the mirror. So yeah. And then 2DD Crow for Blue Eyes and Cosmo and friends. Probably not against ABC because it's too much you want to banish against that deck. At the same time though, like, I don't know how I would feel about that. One Ghost Ogre for the mirror. I was considering siding this against ABC because it hits Union Hanger, but it only hits the second effect of Union Hanger, so they still get the search, and then you're down a card, which is really bad against ABC because it thrives in a simplified game state. So this probably actually isn't that good against ABC, but it is really good in the mirror. So 2 maxi for BA and probably for ABC, maybe. Let's see, it takes three normal summons to make the ABC. So this would either they're either gonna let you draw 3 cards, or they're gonna stop on Tsukuyomi, which like they're still in a decent position, but that's better than facing down ABC 3 back row. 2 Book of Eclipse, Raigeki, and System down. I don't have Ghost Reaper. I think this is better anyway, because Ghost Reaper is only good on the first turn, and Ghost Reaper is a blowout, but System down is also a blowout because this is good after they've set up. This is good after they've set up. So they can set up the ABC and you can System down it, and this does have a counterplay in the form of they can side Oasis and then tribute the ABC and then chain Oasis and summon it back. So that's one way to do it. But Ghost Reaper also has counterplay in Pot of Avidity, so which is almost definitely going to be sided when that deck card comes out. So there's going to have counterplays no matter what. And I think System Down is a bigger blowout because this will also banish all the ABCs from their graveyard, which leaves them with practically nothing. So yeah, and that's the side deck. And it was a lot easier to side when I got put MST in the main. So yeah, that's the deck as it is now. Didn't really change that much in the main, but the extra and side I made a fair number of changes. I lied. I said this video was going to be quicker, and it's about as long, if not longer. So yeah, next deck profile I'll make is probably a budget ABC deck. I just had to actually buy the structure decks. I wasn't able to go out and get them today because I got my Wisdom Teeth removed, so I was stuck at home. But I'm feeling better now. So I'm going to go get those tomorrow probably, and I'll probably post a deck profile of it. It's a budget build because I don't have Desires and I don't have Strike, and I'm going to play the deck for 2 weeks before switching back to Metalfoes. Because ABC's kind of fun in a morbid way, but it's at its core it's a really boring deck. It just generates a lot of advantage and it thrives in a simplified game state, which makes it good. And it also gets slaughtered by the side deck. When you have to counter side their sides, that's something. So yeah, and so yeah, ABC will probably come out sometime this weekend, probably tomorrow. After that, I'll probably do Metalfoes once Invasion Vengeance comes out, because the deck gets so much better after that. I honestly think it's probably better than ABC. I was gonna do Paleozoic Frog, but seeing as Super Tubular Totally Awesome Frog, that's the Xyz that they named stupidly, but it's great because of all the jokes. Since that is a secret rare, I don't know if I'll actually build it because Alkahest is also a secret rare, the level 1 Metalfoes fusion, and then Mithrilium, the level 6, is an ultra, so I need to focus on getting those first. So I don't know if I'll get Totally Awesome, mainly because it's a 3 of in Paleozoic Frog, and it's a secret rare. So yeah, that dream got trashed. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching YouTube. I'll see you next time, deuces.